Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the fifth webinar of the GHIT-PDPs webinar series, session 5, with the European Vaccine Initiative, EVI, and PATH Malaria Vaccine Initiative, MVI, titled Developing Effective and Affordable Vaccines for Partnerships. We are pleased to have you all over the world. My name is Hironobu Itabashi from the GHIT Fund, and I will be moderating the webinar today. The webinar is sponsored by many organizations: Japan Alliance on Global Entities, JAG-NTD, Japan Association of Clinical Reagents Industries, Japan Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association, JPMA, Japanese Association for Infectious Diseases, Japanese Society of Parasitology, Japanese Society of Tropical Medicine, and Japanese Society of Vaccinology. Here is the overview of today's session featuring EVI and PATH MVI, PDPs focusing on developing vaccines for neglected diseases. Please allow me to give you some guidance about the webinar before we start. Today's session will be conducted in English, but we also have a simultaneous translation to Japanese available. If you wish to listen to the webinar in Japanese, please choose Japanese from the interpretation box on the right-hand corner. Feel free to send your questions anytime during the webinar on the Q&A box, which is also found at the bottom of this window. We will also accept questions in Japanese. If you have any technical issues, please contact the email indicated on the screen. Please kindly note that we will be recording today's webinar, and we are planning to upload it on GHIT Fund's website after the webinar. In addition, there will be a questionnaire at the end of this webinar, so it will be very appreciated if you could take 2 minutes of your time to answer them. We have started this webinar series to maintain momentum and foster dialogue about the R&D community's roles, challenges, and opportunities in the fight against neglected diseases during and post-COVID-19 pandemic era. In this session 5 with EVI and PATH MVI, we will focus on the achievements and challenges for the development of vaccines for neglected diseases. Now, I'm pleased to introduce you to the panelists of today's webinar. Today's panelists will be Dr. Sophie Houard from the European Vaccine Initiative, Mr. Masanori Osakabe from Nobelpharma, Dr. Yimin from PATH Malaria Vaccine Initiative, and Dr. Tomoko Ishino from Tokyo Medical Dental University. I would like to thank all the panelists again for being part of this webinar. So let me start with the first presentation. We would like to invite the first presenter, Dr. Sophie Houard from the European Vaccine Initiative. So, Dr. Sophie, if you could unmute yourself and put on your camera.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, thank you. Hello to all participants. I first would like to thank GHIT Fund for these great opportunities to present PDP and European Vaccine Initiative. So my name is Sophie Houard. I'm Director of the Vaccine Development at European Vaccine Initiative. I was trained as a molecular biologist and hold a PhD from the Free University of Brussels in Belgium. So as an introduction for PDP, the situation is this one, is that less than 2% of the estimated annual spending on health R&D is for poverty disease. However, every year, disease of poverty affect 1.7 billion people and kill over 10 million. So the problem is that there is no market incentive for products intended for the low-income population, and as there is low commercial return. So this results in a low engagement of the private sector and restricted innovation for global health R&D technologies. So this has triggered in the 90s the creation of product development partnerships that are focusing on technologies that target disease that affects low and middle income countries, are affordable, accessible, and available to low income population. So the PDP are non-for-profit organization that works to address the absence of commercial incentive to develop innovative tools for population affected by poverty-related and neglected disease. They are public health driven and they focus on the patient needs. They cover either specific research gap or the full innovation cycle. And they use an R&D portfolio approach. It's a process that at the same time develop multiple candidates to minimize the risk associated with product failure, and this facilitates the good product to pass through the pipeline. The PDP are partnership-based. They work with academic, public research institutions, the private sector, government, civil society, and including the partners for the low and middle income countries. The PDP bring together the contribution, be it financial, technical, or in kind, from the public and the private sector. Sorry. The PDP technologies include the vaccine, drugs, diagnostic, device, and vector control. They focus on poverty-related disease such as tuberculosis, HIV, AIDS, and malaria, and as well as improved tools for women and children's health. The PDP coalition member, you can see their logo at the bottom of the slide, have achieved between 2010 and 2020 that 66 products have reached the market. Over 375 products are in development, and the research capacity has been reinforced at over 550 sites in more than 80 countries. The European Vaccine Initiative is a PDP, non-for-profit, and supports the development of safe, effective, and affordable vaccine for global health. It was established in 1998 as European Malaria Vaccine Initiative, and by the way, was the first European PDP. In 2010, EVI has broadened its scope of disease and then became EVI instead of EMVI. EVI is now hosted headquarters are in Heidelberg, Germany. So there are two pillars of activity at EVI. One is to catalyze the vaccine development with a wide portfolio of R&D projects covering vaccine candidates in different stages of development. And the other pillar is more to building the base of vaccine research with not focusing on a single vaccine or specific vaccine, but more on cross-cutting activities with research infrastructure, harmonization, capacity building, control, and network. So the main expertise of EVI is in the so-called Valley of Death for disease of poverty, which is the translation from basic research into the clinical research. And along with this expertise in early clinical development and late preclinical development, there's also expertise in vaccine manufacturing and regulatory affairs. The current EVI project portfolio encompasses several diseases, including malaria, leishmaniasis, diarrheal disease, Zika virus infection, as well as emerging infectious disease such as Nipah virus disease and COVID-19. Since its inception, there has been more than 40 vaccine formulations tested in the clinical trial, and EVI has mobilized over than 200 million for the clinical development of vaccine. And EVI has built a strong network with over 440 collaborating partners. With regard now to the malaria vaccine project portfolio, they are focused on all the stage of the life cycle of the parasite, and also in the malaria in pregnancy. In blue, you can see all the projects that have been supported or are supported by GHIT. I will get into more details on this now. So we have a placental malaria vaccine portfolio candidates with the PAMVAC, which was developed by the University of Copenhagen in Denmark, and the PRIMVAC vaccine developed by INSERM in France to reduce the incidence and severity of malaria in pregnancy, protecting the mother and unborn child already early in the pregnancy. And the GHIT Fund is supporting the clinical development of this vaccine in Ghana and Burkina Faso. Then there is the SE36 malaria blood stage vaccine candidate that was developed by Professor Houard at the University of Osaka. And this is a typical example of a long-term support from GHIT. We have been receiving support since almost the inception of GHIT and have been doing a lot of clinical trials in Burkina Faso. But Dr. Osakabe will now, just after my presentation, will lead you into more detail of this project. And we have also the PERIC5 protein malaria blood stage candidate that was developed by Yimin University by Professor Tsuboi in collaboration with Sumitomo Dainippon. Here, the funding was for preclinical development. And with regard of some question that was raised by GHIT is why the business model of PDP is so important to vaccine R&D of infectious disease, so including malaria, TB, and neglected tropical disease. Well, in fact, the industry has limited economic incentives, such as IP rights, to develop drugs or technologies that for conditions like poverty-related and neglected disease. The PDP business model is important. Our PDP are non-profit, meaning that they are focused on their mission and not on profitability. And this allows the development of health products that target people who are neglected by traditional markets. The PDP facilitated the global coordination and contribution between the public, private, academic, and philanthropic sectors. And this allows for sharing the risk and benefit in the pursuit of a common goal that would not be otherwise attainable. How GHIT establishment in 2013 impacted the R&D work at EVI? Well, it allowed EVI to have access to the Japanese innovation, capacity, and investment. It allows EVI to establish new scientific collaboration with Japanese entities, catalyzing the synergies between the organization, supporting the R&D research really from early stage to full clinical development, ensuring for the most promising product a start and a continued development. So GHIT Fund has really been crucial in supporting the EVI R&D work to develop a more robust pipeline to fight against infectious disease. So the achievement is that working with a Japanese partner and with GHIT Fund is that we have been successful in several preclinical development and in phase 1 clinical trials. Clinical development, future clinical development is underway for neglected population. And one of our achievements we also is that we got support from GHIT for vaccine for malaria in pregnancy that is targeting an even more neglected population, which are the mother and the babies. The lesson learned is that while Complementary expertise is obviously very important. Trustful relationship between the partners is crucial. And here I would like to highlight the support, openness, and flexibility of the GHIT Fund team. It has been instrumental to overcome project hurdles that we had. The main challenge to me is the distance between the Japan country and European and African countries. This prevents to have as much as we would like frequent face-to-face meetings that are so important for the communication and maintaining the good relationship between the partners. On top of this distance is affecting the shipment of the clinical trial sample of material between the partners. And this was even more exacerbated by the travel restriction or the supply chain disruption that were related to the COVID-19 pandemic or ongoing geopolitical situation. The expectation we have from the Japanese partners is obviously to continue the current partnership and to establish new collaboration with more innovation from the Japanese partner to continue filling into the pipeline. So with regard to the COVID and vaccine research for infectious disease, the GFinder report mentioned that in the first year of the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a decrease of 4% in the global funding for basic research and product development for neglected disease. The immediate impact of COVID-19 seems to have fallen mostly on clinical trial. It has interrupted clinical trials in low and middle income countries, and it is assumed that this drop was due to the difficulties of conducting trials in the face of lockdown and travel restriction. And this is exactly what we have faced with our clinical trial that were conducted in Africa. And continuing on the COVID-19 pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic has obviously some positive outcome with regard to the vaccine research and technology. But here, I would like to highlight that this pandemic has led to severe economic reduction around the world. The fight against the virus has cost government billions of dollars, and the policy focus is now moving toward pandemic preparedness. So as a consequence, PDPs that are focusing on neglected disease are already facing the risk of funding shortfall. The PDPs are already redirected toward COVID-19 activities. And meanwhile, other infectious diseases are continuing to devastate the vulnerable population year after year in much as the same way as COVID-19 did during the last 2 years. On top of this, the ongoing epidemic of disease with similar symptoms such as COVID with febrile illness makes the detection of new pathogens with pandemic potential more difficult, hence increasing the risk of a next pandemic. So the GHIT Fund investment and partnership with Japanese R&D entities are vital to developing innovative tools to tackle this disease and enhancing the global health security. With this, I would like to thank again the GHIT Fund by showing some pictures before the COVID-19 pandemic of our annual meeting we had with the SE36 vaccine partners, and to thank the partners, the donors of EVI, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sophie, for your presentation, and thank you very much also for a very clear explanation about the PDPs and 66 products in the past about 10 years from 2010 to 2020. The achievements has been incredible, as you have just highlighted. Moreover, you and your team must be very, very proud of being the first European PDP as well. That's something that I'm sure that you have accumulated a lot of knowledge and expertise, and by doing so, you are even further reaching those patients who are most neglected. So thank you very much again for your presentation.
You're welcome.
So to the audience, please feel free to use the Q&A box to address any questions you may have throughout the webinar. All right, so next, I would like to introduce Mr. Masanori Osakabe from Nobelpharma.
Thank you very much, Itabe-san. Firstly, I will share my presentation slides here. Can you see this?
Yes, I can see the screen.
So first of all, I want to thank GHIT Fund, especially Itabe-san and Katsuno-san, for giving this opportunity to be a speaker at this webinar. And my name is Masanori Osakabe. I'm Deputy Head of R&D at Nobelpharma, responsible for international clinical development programs, including malaria vaccine candidate NPC-SE36. Nobelpharma is a small Japan-based pharmaceutical company established in 2003. Since then, our priority is the benefits for patients. This slide shows our company mission. Since our company started, we commit to contribute to society by providing critical but neglected pharmaceuticals and medical devices. We have focused on the area of R&D, rare and orphan diseases, and have achieved 12 orphan designation, and including 1 medical device and 15 approved products launched in Japan. Now we are expanding our target area from Japan to the world, including Africa. From the next slide, I will show you how the relationship with the European Vaccine Initiative and the collaboration partners started and how GHIT Fund impacted the relationship building. In February 2012, Professor Houard, the first and key event happened. That is Professor Houard of Osaka University, the inventor of SE36 vaccine candidate, and Dr. Odile Leroy of EVI met together during the WHO meeting in Geneva. After a while, Dr. Stefan Jungelbus, business development of EVI, sent Professor Houard an introductory letter. Then the first TCON was held between EVI and Osaka University, where Dr. Nilian Palakpak and Dr. Sophie Houard attended. EVI introduced Dr. Shirima in Burkina Faso to Professor Houard as the best partner candidate in Africa. In April 2014, the 3 partners applied for GHIT Fund, and this proposal was approved and the consortium agreement followed by a clinical trial agreement was in place. In November 2014, I joined Nobelpharma in October 2014, and we started the collaborative development under GHIT investment agreement. I will explain you these agreements later. Burkina Faso is located in West Africa as one of the sub-Saharan countries. There is one rainy season between June and September. We conducted 2 phase 1B studies with 2 formulations. One study was conducted in Banfora and with aluminum hydroxy gel adjuvant formulation. Second one was conducted in Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, with CPG adjuvant formulation. As for the budget, GHIT granted these 2 studies. This slide shows the malaria parasite life cycle and the potential vaccine targets. Experts say that there can be 3 target candidates in this life cycle. One is so-called mosquito stage, and the second is liver stage. The most preceding vaccine, RTSS, has been developed by GSK and received the WHO recommendation last October after their big implementation study was completed. The number of subjects reached around 800,000. The target of NPC SE36 is so-called blood stage. This slide shows the role and responsibility and the consortium organization under the GHIT investment agreement. EVI is assigned as a designated development partner and is responsible for overall coordination and management of the program. EVI receives the grant funding from GHIT as a representative recipient and distributes the grant to the collaboration partners. Osaka University and GRA in Burkina Faso and Nobelpharma are the collaboration partners. This slide shows the contract structure between GHIT, EVI, and collaboration partners. Investment agreement defines important contract conditions, such as an award to budget to the consortium, a nomination of partnership, and payment and annual progress report schedules. Under this investment agreement, we have made collaboration agreement. In parallel, EVI RIMD, Osaka University and the Nobelpharma have made a memorandum of understanding. This slide shows how EVI dedicates to this project as a product development partnership. The first one is project governance. And they are also responsible and very good at financial management and communication. These are the important and the key areas that the EVI has been responsible and dedicating to this project. This slide shows a short summary of SE36 development history. In 2003, preclinical studies started firstly for AHG formulation, and P1 study, phase 1 study, was conducted in Japan by Osaka University as an investigator-initiated study. During such development stages, sometimes EVI came to our office, and sometimes we met together in Burkina Faso, and we once visited EVI office in Heidelberg together with Professor Houard, Professor Nilian Palotpak, and our managing director, Mr. Shiomura. Such meetings in person must be very important to establish a good relationship. So this slide is the last one, and this slide shows the outline of our SE36 phase 1B study that was recently completed. Thanks to EVI and GHIT, we got the safety and efficacy data by this GHIT-funded study. Now we are encouraged by this data to move to the next phase 2 stage in Africa. In summary, PDPs like EVI and the GHIT Fund must be the key players who can bring even a small company with no experiences in Africa, like us Nobelpharma, to develop malaria vaccine candidate in Africa. We highly appreciate these organizations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Osakabe, for your presentation. And thank you very much for sharing how the collaboration between Nobelpharma and EVI began. It is really incredible how a small introduction, a meetup, could lead to another one, eventually to another one, and finally to a project like yours. It is really appreciated that you have shared that background. And also, thank you for clearly explaining the role of each collaboration of the project. I'm pretty sure that having a clear role prior to starting the project was crucial for you to actually start the project, and by maximizing each partner's expertise like you have just mentioned. So thank you very much again for that. All right, so next I would like to introduce Dr. Yimin Wu from PATH Malaria Vaccine Initiative. So if you could unmute yourself and share the screen. Now we can see your camera is on.
Can you hear me and see the screen?
Yes, I could hear you. And if you could put on presentation slides for your slides so we could see the full screen.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is that now? Okay. So first, I would like to thank GHIT for organizing this.
Dr. Yimin, it seems like you have not put the full screen. So if you could select on slideshow on the top. So that we could see the full screen. Oh, yes, there.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for your patience. First, I would like to thank GHIT for organizing this webinar. So I can share the opportunity.
Dr. Yimin, sorry, it seems like the screen has not been on full yet. If you would like, we could share the screen on your behalf, if that's okay with you.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that. So if you could stop sharing the screen, and please let us know when to move on to the next slide. Okay, now you can start.
Okay, yeah, so sorry about that. So my name is Yimin Wu, and I was trained as a malaria research on basic science, and I started malaria vaccine development since 2002, and I participated in multiple development in the clinical early phase clinical trial on the malaria vaccine candidates. Next slide, please. So here is the outline of my talk. I will introduce PATH as a PDP and a story of the RTSS and also development of a second generation malaria vaccine and the key elements that I would like to share. Next, please. In the first series of webinar, Dr. Kei Katsuno defined PDP as a non-for-profit organization that develop, innovate, and affordable vaccine or tools for poverty-related population and diseases through partnership between public, private, and philanthropic donors. PATH is exactly such a PDP, with a mission to advance health equity through innovation and partnership. Here, I would like to share a YouTube clip with a brief description of what the PATH does. Can you click the link, please?
We all deserve the chance to live healthy lives, to grow to our full potential, to see our families and communities thrive. We deserve health equity. But the public health systems that support us face growing challenges like limited budgets and resources, an increasingly complex burden of disease, and the unprecedented threats of pandemics and climate change. At PATH, we've been working toward health equity for more than 40 years, driving public health solutions that meet the most pressing needs of families, communities, and countries. Today, we're at work in 70 countries. Our 1,400 team members include scientists, healthcare workers, advocates, inventors, and analysts. We forge partnerships across sectors and borders with governments, philanthropists, nonprofits, and the private sector. With the help of these partners, we immunize millions of children, digitize national health systems, track diseases with real-time data, advance critical policies, and bring to market affordable, life-saving medicines, devices, and diagnostics. Our work strengthens health systems and improves life for billions of people. Together, we can do even more.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Yeah, so malaria is one of the 4 diseases that the PATH Center for Vaccine Innovation is currently focusing on. The other 3 being meningitis, pneumonia, and polio. CVR spans every stage of a long, complex process for vaccine research, development, and introduction to make life-saving vaccines widely available to women, children across the world, and the community across the world. And CVR's current portfolio encompassing more than 4 dozen vaccines in development or already in use. Next slide, please. A good example of such work is RTSS, the world's first malaria vaccine that is now under WHO's recommendation being implemented for a broad use in children at risk, mainly in African countries. And RTSS becomes a pathfinder for other vaccines without dual market, that is only for population with poverty and the diseases. Next slide, please. Here is the timeline of major milestones of the RTSS development. GSK and Walter Reed Army Research Institute began collaboration on malaria vaccine development in 1984, and RTSS was created at GSK in 1987. In 2001, GSK and PATH MVI entered into a public-private partnership to develop RTSS in young children in malaria endemic region in Africa. And this work was enabled by funding for late-stage development from Gates Foundation to PATH from 2001 through 2015. PATH-GSK collaboration successfully shepherded the vaccine through phase 2 and phase 3 trial, regulatory review by European Medicine Agency, and reviewed by WHO. So today, PATH continue to support RTSS malaria vaccine, including through our role in WHO coordinated pilot introduction program underway in Ghana, Kenya, and Malawi. So the bottom photos show that the key personnel and partners that involved in the trial. Next slide, please. Not only produce the vaccine require innovation and a partnership, the pilot introduction and implementation also involves many, many partners as shown on this slide. Next, please. But despite the success of RTSS, there's still a need of second generation vaccine for better efficacy and access with ultimate goal of malaria elimination. As shown, the second generation vaccine development has targeted to 3 life cycle stages: blocking transmission, blocking disease, and blocking infection. Next slide, please. GHIT has been a staunch supporter for the second generation vaccine development. And this is a list of GHIT funded projects that PATH, together with Evi University and partners, had worked on the second generation the malaria vaccine targeted to block transmission or block malaria infection. The list also reflected that the GHIT not only funded the project, and most importantly, they encourage, promote, and foster the effort through innovation and partnership. Next, please. So for the transmission blocking vaccine, the project started with a screening, selecting, and a functional domain of PFS 230, a parasite targeted antigen over 300 kilodalton, too big for recombinant production as a subunit vaccine. Using WeGerm expression system, the Evi University team cut small the big protein to over 30 fragments, and the PFS 230D1 was demonstrated to be functional domain. And then a Sumitomo Nippon Pharma called DSP, which has a strong pipeline in cancer vaccine development, brought in its toll-like receptor 7 agonist SA1 as an adjuvant, a critical component for any vaccines. PFS 230 SA1 induced the potent neutralization antibodies that can block parasite development in mosquito, therefore, to block human transmission to human by mosquitoes. As of today, the PFS 230 formulated S1 has been manufactured, and we are about to conduct a toxicology study and prepare a pre-IND meeting with the FDA. So PFS 230 SA1 is on its way toward a human trial. Next, please. Next slide, please. With RTSS, the first malaria vaccine to block infection, the second generation vaccine with the same target has to be superior in efficacy, in durability, and in access. We have recombinantly produced full-length CSP containing additional epitopes that are missing in RTSS, and using DSPS SA1 as adjuvant, and another liposomal adjuvant called the COPOP, which has already been part of the COVID vaccine under clinical development. So GHIT funding enabled evaluation of full-length CSP in SA1 and full-length CSP in COPOP in head-to-head comparison with RTSS as a benchmark. The studies are still in progress, and we will follow a predetermined go-no-go criteria to decide whether to advance the candidate for further development. Next slide, please. So here I would like to share some of my personal experience in successful completion of multiple GHIT project and advancing our candidates through the GHIT stage gates. You see, excellence in science and the complementary skill set are critical. In addition to these, I believe personal enthusiasm played a big role in success of partnership in the projects. Professor Ishino, Takafumi, and Akisa brought their passion and dedication to this project and to the partnership, and then led Yimin team and DSP team to drive the project forward. Next slide, please. And additional thoughts on benefit of partnership to address the global challenges. So first, product development requires a specialized knowledge and skill encompassing process from a discovery to clinical trial. Partnership can assemble specialized knowledge on pathogen, on cutting-edge technology, on production, quality, safety testing, or even regulatory on the clinical trial. With a target product profile, partners can identify and address challenges facing the product development and a set go, no-go criteria as a tool to guide investment. And the partnership linking research to development to implementation is the most efficient way to utilize the precious resource and to accelerate the product development process. Next. So I will stop here for any question you might have, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yimin, for your presentation. And thank you very much for restating the definition of PDPs at the beginning of your presentation and explaining that PATH is indeed, and it reflects such a definition of PDP. So thank you again for that. And also, thank you for providing the timeline of the RTS as it goes back to 1984. It seems such a long time, yet such a short period as well, and so much has been achieved so far from you and from all the partners as well. And finally, the point that you mentioned about personal enthusiasm, especially from Professor Tsuboi, Mr. Akihisa Fukushima, and Professor Ishino as well, that's very nice to hear from you as well. And I'm sure that all the partners are also, we're glad to hear such a, that it's not only about science and working and all the stress that goes along these research, but also the personal side of the people that makes these projects successful. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
All right, so last but not least, I would like to introduce Dr. Tomoko Ishino from Tokyo Medical Dental University.
Thank you. So I will share my screen. And can you hear me and can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see you and I can hear you and I can see your screen.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you very much for giving me this nice opportunity to share my experience with GHIT and PDPs. So I'm Tomoko Ishino. I'm a quite new professor in Tokyo Medical and Dental Universities from the last summer. So the most work I will talk today was done when I was in Ehime University. As Yimin-san already talked, that the WHO recommended to use the first malaria vaccine, that is RTSS, for African children. This RTSS aims to reduce parasite transmission from mosquito to humans by targeting sporozoid, the infectious stage of parasite. It is really good news that we have a weapon to protect African children from malaria. However, the reduction in episodes or severity are not sufficient yet to eradicate malaria from the endemic region, so we need to improve the strategy. It took almost 40 years to develop this first malaria vaccine, and in the meantime, the field of malaria biology has been greatly developed. I joined this malaria research field as a basic researcher almost 20 years ago, and since then I enjoy identification of several important malaria proteins, such as protein which involved in sporozoid migration or invasion of the liver or development inside hepatocyte. Some proteins are commonly essential for parasite invasion of several target cells. These proteins could be very nice target for infection-blocking vaccine or drug. We also find some proteins involved in parasite fertilization and further development inside mosquito midgut, which could be a great target for transmission-blocking vaccines. However, as a basic researcher, I didn't know how to proceed with these fantastic seeds towards the product development. It is really long road for product development, consists of several steps like this. The first one is huge amount of basic research to find several good candidates for vaccine development or drug discovery. And among them, only few can move towards the next step, like clinical study, phase 1, 2, 3. And in case of malaria vaccine, only one has reached to the product. As a basic researcher like me, so we happily contribute to this first step, the basic research, but we have no idea or experience to go further to deliver this fantastic seeds to the patients. This gap could be filled with the help by GHIT and PDPs, who could learn with us in the aim of product development and help us to move forward. This is the history of our collaboration project with PDPs supported by GHIT. In most projects, as you can see here, the PATH MVI is our partner to develop malaria transmission blocking vaccine and infection blocking vaccines. This photo was taken about 2 years ago before the pandemic, and it clearly tells you that our partnerships is really going well by our face. This could be achieved by continuous support and catalyzation by GHIT. But this amazing and trustable relationship could not form instantly. Actually here, Dr. Tsuboi and Yimin-san know each other for really long time as a postdocs in the same institute. So we really appreciate this GHIT that they support this small bat to make much bigger. This is a second project supported by GHIT based on the previous collaboration between Ehime team and Yimin-san about PFS 230 as a promising target for transmission blocking vaccine. So as Yimin-san already explained that this is huge, so we would like to know which region is important for antibody production. And Ehime University has nice skill to produce malaria proteins efficiently, and PATH has a assay system to evaluate transmission blocking efficacy. And we found that this region is key to induce the transmission blocking antibody. We also found that among several candidate formulation, copper liposome system is suitable for our target. From this project, we have 2 original papers, and we could happily continue to the next project supported by GHIT. The next one is here, that we knew that the COPOP system with PFS 230 in terminal region could induce a nice transmission blocking antibody. So we decide to combine another target which breaks the different stage of parasite, CSP. CSP is a target of RTSS on sporozoid. Using this formulation, we could successfully induce the antibody which block parasite invasion of the liver, resulting that about 70 to 80% reduction in the parasite burden in the liver. So the result is now under review, and I hope it is going smoothly, and we could continue to the next GHIT project. So I learned a lot of things from our partnerships. The important things for the partnership is that we should have common goal, vision, and passion. And at the same time, we also have the different skill sets and strengths. Each partner should have role and responsibility, and of course, respect each other. And yeah, personally, I got many impact from these partnerships. From this collaboration or from this project, I could meet more collaborators with similar aims and different skill sets. So I can easily start new projects with new approaches. And I could hear new demands of basic research from the point of PDP's view. It is very nice. And now I didn't hesitate to do some field work in the endemic regions by the experience of this project. So to address this global issue like malaria, we need to collaborate internationally like this. And yeah, it is supported by GHIT. Now, one of the tasks in my new position is to communicate with Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research in Ghana. So using this partnerships or experience, I would like to focus on this new collaboration. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ishino, for your presentation. And as you have mentioned, it is a long road for product development, yet the basic research is crucial for this product development. And I'm pretty sure that you have played a key role for these partnerships. And let's also hope that you and your project team could meet again face-to-face in the near future and take again such a nice picture and smiling picture that you have shown. And also we wish you good luck with your project with Ghana as well. All right, thank you very much. So to the audience, if you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A box and send that to us. And we'll try to cover them during the Q&A session. All right, so we would like to move on to the panel discussion session with all the panelists and also with Dr. Kei Katsuno from the GHIT Fund. So to all the panelists, please turn on your camera. All right, now we can see you all. All right, so we have a few questions that I would like to ask all the panelists. So let us begin this very interesting discussion. So the first question is to Dr. Sophie and Dr. Yimin. So what kind of collaboration would be possible with Japanese entities, and what merits and needs can you suggest from Japanese entities to be in a collaboration with EVI and PATH MVI to develop vaccines? So if you could start with Dr. Sophie. If you could unmute yourself.
Yes, just did. Thank you. Yeah, with regarding of the kind of collaboration, well, in fact, I would say that any collaboration in support of vaccine development would be, of course, interesting. Vaccine development aiming at global health, right? And at any stage of development, but it could be also in terms of capacity building, also not specifically on vaccine development. And the merits we have at EVI is that we have a big network of collaborators. We have quite some expertise in building consortia with multiple partners. And in addition to that, we are based in Europe, and therefore we have access to the European research infrastructure and as well as European funds. So that's the merits of EVI. I think we could greatly share with Japanese partners.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sophie. We would like to hear from Dr. Yimin as well about your thoughts.
Yeah, So as I said in my presentation, I think not only the skill, knowledge, the passion is very important, but Dr. Sophie's mentioning of capacity building really struck a chord to me, because I found that during the process, even though the Ehime University started as a basic researcher, I think they are very, very strong in malaria research. And they certainly see the direction now that toward the product development. And they start to moving or fit the laboratory and the skill toward that direction. I can make for some example, I think this is also related to their passion to the science and toward the goal of product development. And two examples during that process. One is adopting an assay which the kind of sophisticated assay and requires additional instrument for the whole body image of the mice to measure, to quantify the infection. So I think the Ehime University actually go extra miles to do so. So that is, to me, it is kind of a capacity building for the Ehime University. And the other thing is about the assays that they realize that for product development, and you have to go toward good documentation and not just the lab notes for record the experiment results, but going through that process for recording a good documentation practice. I think this is also kind of capacity building toward the product development. So I think this is very, very good. Good. But in terms of the laboratory setting, any place I would think from basic researcher to industry, I think that if you identify a common goal and identify a partner, and it can be done for any disease. And we talk about the malaria, but like EVI has a lot of other diseases as well. PATH has other diseases, just as I mentioned, we have meningitis and we have polio. So I think that any institute, I think, especially to our Japanese colleagues, whether you are in basic science or you are in industry, you can always find such a partner if you identify a common goal.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yimin, for providing clear examples and for such an enthusiastic message as well. Thank you very much. All right, so let us move on to the next question. So this one is to Dr. Ishino. What was the biggest challenge and lesson learned to you after collaborating with PATH MVI, and what impact did it have to your work and to your mindset?
Thank you for asking. So as Yimin-san already mentioned that I was a really basic researcher. Actually, I was a developmental biologist when I was PhD student. But I was also fascinated by the Asian country, and I really love science. So I would like to fuse these two interests and find this field, parasitology field, and join this team. But yeah, on the bench, I enjoy so much to find a new target, new gene important for parasite life cycle, and I enjoy it a lot. And yeah, I was so satisfied, but it's kind of playground. So I was satisfied, but I feel that I may lack something. I may miss something, but it's my passion. And yeah, but I still enjoying doing that. And suddenly Dr. Tsuboi and Yimin-san break my door from outside strongly, and took me outside and see the real and see what I could contribute. So it is so happy moment to know the road towards the product development. And as I say that through these collaborations, I had the courage to apply this my position, which requires the tight communication with Ghana team. So yeah, it is really big impact for me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ishino, for your words and for also highlighting how much Dr. Yimin and Professor Tsuboy have supported you, and I'm sure that they have also supported other project people as well. So thank you very much for mentioning about that. All right, so the next question, this one is to Mr. Osakabe. So you mentioned a little bit on your presentation that you're working on new fields as well. So the question is, how do you keep the commitment from your company towards R&D for neglected diseases? If you could share any examples or activities such as workshops within your company to explain about neglected diseases and or the project with EVI.
Thank you for asking. Actually, as I explained in my presentation, our mission is to contribute to society by providing such neglected but necessary medicinal products and medical devices. So it's our mission, and we always think much of the patients, their benefits. So we don't pursue such a profit itself. So in order to have a very good understanding about such needs of the patient's treatment, we regularly have our company meeting quarterly basis. And in the beginning, our managing director, Mr. Shiomura, started his presentation to selected some of our code of actions and explained us what the reason why we need to comply with such code of actions. And after that, we always invite patient groups, and some of the representatives of the patient group always give us their in a sense lecture, and through such lectures we understand and we recognize what we needed to do to save such patients or to give them such a very good treatment. So in every quarterly basis, we always have touched with in such a way with the code of action of our company together with such a patient group needs. So that must be the good reason that we understand very well that we should prioritize the benefits of patients.
Thank you very much, Mr. Osakabe, for restating the mission and the vision of your company as well. And that's, I think, everyone on the audience had it very clear. And you're, working straight towards that mission and vision. So that's very good to hear. So let me just recap a little bit what we have been discussing. And there's been a lot of partnerships and connections and introductions and meetups, and then that led to another meeting. So I would like to hear a little bit more about how GHIT sees these collaborations and partnerships, because GHIT has been in a way or another an intermediary of those partnerships. So I would like to hear about from Dr. Katsuno what are the thoughts of GHIT in general about this point.
Sure, Hiro, thanks. So I think we're lucky enough to have heard from both EVI and PATH MVI from Drs. Sophie and Yimin in terms of the perspectives that these global PDP organizations have towards global health R&D space. And also we've heard from Ishino Sensei and Osakabe-san in terms of how the Japanese counterparts, both private sector and academia see these partnerships from Japan's angle. So, and in terms of GHIT, I think we are, I mean, the GHIT Fund itself is in a very unique position to really bring these global and domestic partners all together to really advance global health R&D. So I think obviously the main work of GHIT is to really invest in promising R&D projects, but also what's really important here is to really think about how we can connect these dots and potential actors, really promising actors in global health R&D together to bring about new innovations. So we're so much looking forward to keeping the discussion forward to get together with panelists today, and also together with the those stakeholders that are joining this video webinar in the audience. So if anyone has any idea in terms of potential partnerships or projects, we, as in the GHIT management team, we're always here. We'd like to hear from you to think about potential partnerships. So back to you, Yura.
Thank you very much, Dr. Katsuna. And please, to the audience, feel free to contact us or send questions about it if you have any. All right, so let me just change a little bit the topic of this panel discussion. So let's talk about scope of the diseases. So I think that Dr. Sophie and Dr. Yimin, from the PDP perspective, we have discussed a little bit the diseases that you work on and that you have been working on. So my question to both of you is about the scope of these diseases for each PDP. So has there been any changes for targeted diseases, and how do you see from a PDP perspective moving on in the future in terms of disease scope? So if you could start perhaps with Dr. Yimin this time.
Well, I think that if I'm speaking just for malaria vaccine, and the RTSS is very good this first step, but I think our focus would still be in the second generation of the malaria vaccine candidates, targeting to the other life cycle stages. Still, I think including the anti-infection, I think CSP. I think the other thing is the recent development of a monoclonal antibody technology is also opened a door. So I think the path has already started going toward a direction, and certainly GHIT as well. So our new the GHIT funded project is to utilizing the monoclonal antibody that we discovered from the RTSS project implementation to develop or identify and develop the monoclonal antibody against the CSP as immunotherapeutic tools. So I think the monoclonal antibody is certainly a new sort of area that we will be focusing on. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yimin, for your explanation. So let us hear from Dr. Sophie, how you see in terms of new disease scopes.
So if I understand, beyond the malaria scope, where we could also still continue working, as Dr. Yimin mentioned, on identifying, let's say, the best possible vaccine candidate that could be combined to make a good, perfect malaria vaccine and eradicate malaria. That's one thing. And then on other disease, there are still other neglected diseases that are quite difficult to tackle, like leishmanias. Keeps a problematic, and it's difficult to tackle. We had some experience in that with GHIT, and we, well, as a partnership, when there is a portfolio, a vaccine that doesn't clearly work, it doesn't work, that's for sure. But then we have to focus on other disease. Maybe there are such new problems that are linked with the antibiotic resistance, also that we could focus on vaccine against those antibiotic resistance. That would be also very useful. I think there's a wide range of other disease that could have an important impact that we should also be open to in the future. That's for sure. We should not restrict ourselves to what we decide now, but what's happening also. That's a good point. And yes, that's basically what I would say. I would keep open to the remaining neglected diseases that are still there, and open to what any new disease appearing, open to the technologies and innovation for Japanese partners to continue the development of those basic research discovery.
May I add?
Of course, yes, Dr. Yimin, please.
Yeah. So I think that even though that I'm still restricted to speaking about the malaria, so far the work we've done is focusing on the falciparum malaria. I think there's another, the Vivax malaria is actually very, very challenging and very important as well. So I think we should actually keep an eye open on that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, both, for your comments. And right, so the next question, let us move on to perhaps the last topic of this panel discussion, and it's about innovation and thinking, outside the box. And this question is actually for Professor Ishino and Osakabe-san. So prior to the pandemic, I'm sure that you have met with multiple researchers in Japan and abroad. And now this conference, now it's all about video conferences and Zoom meetings. But how could you bring these scientists and researchers together to discuss new ideas for global health? And if there's anything that could be done from GHIT and to support those innovations and new ideas. So perhaps we could start with Mr. Osakabe. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Thank you very much, but I'm not so certain if I understand completely what you really want me to speak. So are you talking about such a, how such a new innovative product can be started its development?
Right, so essentially, how can we bring new ideas? How do you bring new ideas, and how do you discuss those new ideas?
I see. Actually, Nobelpharma doesn't have our research centers. Instead, we are always open to academia. So very luckily, many academia people come to our office and start such a talk about their products. So I can't tell you how many products now we have for our investigation, but we must be very lucky that actually sometimes PMDA or Kosei Rodosho, MHLW, sometimes suggested such academic people to go to Nobelpharma. Right. Because we are very special company focusing on such a rare disease area. And the physicians and medical doctors know very well such a need and how to treat such patients. So that must be one of the reasons why they come to our office so often.
Right. Thank you very much, Osakabe-san, for your example as well. Right. How about Professor Ishino?
So the question is to have an idea and how the GHIT can contribute. Is that correct?
Right. Essentially, how do we bring new ideas and how can GHIT support that emergence of new ideas?
So for me, the research experiment is most important to find new questions. And we want to start from the question, from daily results. If something is unexpected, I would like to answer the why, the question why it happens. So I would like to find new question from the experiment. And then to ask, we cannot solve the problem by ourselves, of course, so we would like to ask professionals in this field. And now from the collaboration, a lot of collaboration through GHIT or any others, I have many, I know many good scientists who can ask a lot of questions. And if someone doesn't know the question answer, they can introduce other person for me. So this can be the way to find the question and solve the question and develop the project. So GHIT always help me continuously because the connection is so important. And now I'm in the new circumstance, and I really realize that knowing many people is so precious and a treasure for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Ishino, for your comments. Right, so we're on time, just on time for the Q&A session. So I would like to move on to the Q&A session. So let me invite Dr. Cecilia from the GHIT Fund to moderate the Q&A session.
Thank you, Tabas-san. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Cecilia, and I will be moderating the Q&A session today. Thank you for those of you who stick with us in this webinar and for sending in your questions. We'll be reading the questions that you have sent via the Q&A box. So the first one is, this question is for Dr. Sophie and Dr. Yimin. So as we have discussed, capacity development is important for technology and knowledge transfer, and probably also is important for the topic of intellectual property as well. So how can we ensure that a sustainable mechanism is in place to facilitate the sharing of knowledge among different partners, especially you're working with different stakeholders as well? So could you share with us your experience in sharing research results, including those that are probably obtaining quite early in the trials as well? So Dr. Sophie, would you like to take on this first?
Yes, well, basically between the partners, we share experience by meeting very frequently. We are looking at each other, what we have been doing. For example, for the clinical trial, we give support to the partners by on the quality management, for example, and ensuring that everything is done properly. So we have meeting, we discuss every point of the clinical trial. So we know that the process has been established at the site and is followed at the site. Mainly the way to manage and to monitor this is really by communication, emails, and hopefully face-to-face meeting when that will be starting again. And mainly, communication and frequent meeting where we share everything, the results, problems, and we troubleshoot or congratulate ourselves, depending on the issues.
Yeah, thank you. Great. Yeah, communication is key in most things in life, isn't it? So Dr. Yimin, would you like to add anything to Dr. Sophie's comment?
Yeah, I would like to echo what Dr. Sophie said about the communication, and we do have regular meetings and also the emails that which is not restricted by the meeting, the cadence. But I totally agree with the question about the IP issues. I think this is actually set at the very beginning. When we have the signed agreement with the each other and with GHIT, and we will address the IP issues. I think first, I think we want to make sure that the information is freely communicated. But on the other hand, the IP, the rights of the inventor should be protected as well. But on the other hand, I think everyone, parties that come into the GHIT project will actually have realized that the IP and the rights that we are in the global health, to promote the global health, for which I think the GHIT actually the set aside, the set forth a very clear goal, so that I think this is very, very helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for your comment. I think we have got one follow-up questions for you, actually, Dr. Yimin. So you also mentioned that monoclonal antibodies is for you and for PATH next interest, and definitely a great area to explore as well. Just curious of your thoughts on how do you ensure the affordability of these new innovations and making sure that these products can really get to the people who needs them.
Yes, I think this is very important. I think this is something that the monoclonal antibody field is also working on. We know that the production of monoclonal antibody is quite expensive. So I think in our project, for the poverty and the tropical disease related population, I think the cost of goods is an important question. So I don't think I have a perfect answer now, but we are working toward that direction. So at the beginning of the project, included in the new GHIT project that we are about to sign agreement, or maybe we just signed agreement, that the initial search for cost good is part of our exercise. And this is not just limited to the GHIT project. I think every funder is working on that, including Wellcome Trust, and I think the Gates Foundation, they are also working toward that. So the question is a very good one, and this is a very, with a forward-looking vision. I think this is something that the monoclonal field, the researcher and developer in the monoclonal field will have to work on. Yeah. Does that answer the question? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is great. Thank you. So the next one is this is a question for Professor Ishino. So it's great to see Japanese women working on such a great project. And I think for me as a woman in science as well, is STEM women in STEM is always a topic that feel very passionate to my heart. So do you want to share some advice for young Japanese women researchers who would like to advance a career in R&D?
Wow, this is a very big topics. Yeah, it is not easy, and in Japan is a quite a difficult country for women to survive in, not only in the scientific region, but in many regions. But for me, I try to communicate. I try to imagine what they are thinking or what they want, and they didn't think that women couldn't do anything or something like that, but they have some mindset already, and if they still have this mindset, they couldn't see the real world. So I try to move bigger and say bigger, try to see me directly, and try to find friends to communicate together, both women and men, and I enjoy surviving this world, and it is now I would like to help younger generation to have much easier way to enjoy their science. Is that good? I answer your question? Is that okay?
Yeah, that is great. Yeah, thank you. So since we're running out of time, so I'm just going to ask the final questions. So what do you think about, let's direct this questions to Dr. Sophie, if you don't mind. So now that we have heard a lot about COVID, vaccines development and innovations, in your perspective, how do you think it's going to inform the next generation malaria vaccines? Is it going to have a positive impact on the innovation of malaria vaccines as well, given the development that is happening these days?
Yeah, there are certainly very positive impact from the COVID-19 because regarding the technology of vaccine has been with RNA vaccine really improved, and that would be most probably a possibility to try and test several combination of vaccine or new antigen from the malaria quite quickly, definitely more quickly than the conventional vaccine. And that could be very, very helpful to advance to the selection of the optimal malaria vaccine with either several combination or refined antigen. Yes, so definitely the COVID-19 has had a positive impact on that sense. Maybe not on the funding, but it's different.
Yeah. Thank you so much for everyone for their input. As much as we would like to continue, but we're running out of time. So unfortunately, we have to close the Q&A session tonight. So I'm now going to pass the mic back to my colleague, Itabasan, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cecilia, for moderating the Q&A session. And also thank you to all the audience for sending such great questions. And we are really sorry that we could not cover them all today due to the limited time. And thank you again to the great discussion today, to the panelists, Dr. Sophie Houard from the European Vaccine Initiative, Mr. Masanori Osakabe from Nobelpharma, Dr. Yimin from PATH Malaria Vaccine Initiative, and Dr. Tomoko Ishino from Tokyo Medical and Dental University. Please allow me to share some information before closing this webinar. A questionnaire will be sent to you after the webinar. Your answers to the questionnaire really help us improve our work in the future. So we welcome any ideas for potential partnerships and collaboration. So please answer to this questionnaire to us, and we'll be very happy to have them. And finally, I would like to inform you and everyone that this has been the last webinar of the GHIT-PDPs webinar series, which started last September. I would like to thank our sponsors for supporting the webinar series. Also to all the panelists, including this one throughout the webinar series. Also the audience who have been very interactive and active during the Q&A sessions, and for participating at such early times from time to time and late night, such as today in Japan. And finally, also, I would like to thank all the GHIT team for making this webinar series possible. So with that, thank you again to everyone for participating today, and have a great end of the week.